Okay, welcome back. We are in episode
Let's call
five.
it, yeah,
I think
something.
episode 5 of our buyer series, where we are doing a longer format Q&A. And today we want to talk about different aged homes that you'll find in Bozeman and our surrounding areas: Livingston, Big Sky, Belgrade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think so. There's a lot of challenges when it comes to different aged homes, and they're not necessarily age specific. Kayla and I have been talking a little bit about how, first of all, let's just, if you're here in Bozeman and you want to be a few blocks away from the university or a few blocks away from downtown, you're probably going to be looking at a home that's 100 plus years old.
Yeah, or certainly has some age on it. And, older homes will just have a lot of differences. And again, neither one's bad or good. I think the biggest part and the goal of this is to just help educate and help people get an understanding for it and just have an idea of what to maybe look for in those homes when they're considering buying one.
Right. So, if you wanted to be a few blocks away from downtown or the university here in Bozeman, yep, you're probably looking at a home that's 100 plus years old. Now, that home could have been recently redone, so it's got a new furnace, and maybe they put a lot of money into it and kind of changed the floor plan around. Kayla and I were talking about, hey, most of those homes don't have laundry rooms or mud rooms or actual proper
Primary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are you okay with that? And maybe you are because you really, really want to be a couple blocks from downtown or a couple blocks from the university. Well, that's definitely something to think about. um, I also feel like, while it's wonderful to drive through those neighborhoods with the super mature 100 plus year old oak trees and everything like that, that's great, but sometimes those require maintenance. Well, actually, they always require maintenance.
Yeah.
And I think that the you have to consider that, just like, well, it's got a 30-year-old roof. Well, it needs a new furnace. Well, we've got these mature trees that need to be trimmed back or maintained or maybe gotten rid of because they're impeding drainage around the house or something like that. So all of those things that are wonderful about an established neighborhood and the quaint,
Or historic districts.
right, exactly.
I think just really getting a good idea. And again, not all of these will apply, right? So sometimes we'll show homes that are downtown that are older. They have a new roof recently because it was time and the owner did it. So it's not a rule of thumb by any means, but I think we want to help you key in on what are some of the big things to at least try and keep an eye on when you're walking through these homes. And again, always recommend getting a home inspection because they will go over it top to bottom and really help you get an idea for how the system and home is functioning. But I think it's important too to just kind of understand, because something we've talked about, if you are looking for a certain amount of these qualities, to me, I'm like, you better be comfortable with having a lead-based paint disclosure, because that will just always be part of homes that are built prior to 1978. That will forever and always be with homes because there's a chance that there's lead-based paint with them. And if that's not something you're comfortable with, we should talk about a different age home or look in different areas because
Well, and then, like, moving kind of into maybe like a middle-aged home, something that was built in the 50s, 60s, or 70s. Okay, this is great. This home is giant. It's like a one-level ranch. This is
yeah,
awesome.
or
It's
tri-level.
right. So yeah, but depending on what year that home was built, and you're thinking, oh, we're just going to rip up this tile flooring and we're going to, well, there might be a surprise there as well because asbestos was big in flooring. And it's not that you can't deal with it, it's just something that you want to be prepared to know that that might be an extra added expense.
Yeah.
But that might be in the perfect neighborhood, with the right size yard and the best neighbors, and close to your mom or grandma or whatever, and that could be great. So you're willing to take on that risk. So
Yeah, I think again, there's no right aged home. It's just again a combination of what are the things you're needing and wanting out of your house and being really realistic with it. Something I always like to weigh with my clients is sometimes if they're like, "Well, we love this area, we can afford this house." It's like, "Great. Can you afford again, obviously the purchase price, but then the maintenance and or updating that will need to be done with it." There's those things. But then another thing I always like to have them consider as well is, well, if in the end you've purchased this house for, you bought the house for 600,000 and you put 100 grand into it, what could you maybe just buy for 500 grand that could be what you want?
700.
Oh, so, did I do my math wrong?
700. Or it could go backwards.
Or you could just be super
money.
lucky.
Yeah.
We gotta edit that.
It's
so
good.
mean.
We're leaving that.
That's so mean.
No, but I think that Kayla has a good point. When you're getting into these big projects, you have to okay, well, if I'm going to stay here for 15 years, it is likely that I'll get my 100 grand back out of it. So the renovations are worth it, not only in terms of me creating wealth in owning this property, but also in changing it so it best serves my family or my individual purposes. I think that there has to be some of that when you are looking at an older home and your idea or your goal is to renovate it. That yeah, you need to make sure that there's a fair amount of upside.
Big amount of hours, because again, it's going to take probably more time, more money than you want. So where are you living during that time frame? And then again, making sure that the end goal is worth it, or could you just perhaps purchase something that works right now and can just be a little bit easier and more streamlined
For 700,000.
Yeah.
Not 5. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I think the other thing too is even in brand new construction, uh, oh my, this looks just like Joanna Gaines would love. It's got the beautiful, bleached oak hardwood floors, and it's got, isn't this great? Isn't it great? Okay, great. But there's not a stick of grass outside, and there's no landscaping, and none of your neighbors have any landscaping either, and so you can't even be be outside for the sun. That could be a problem. There's not going to be mature landscaping around there, or mature, anything for a couple dozen years. So sometimes that's those are like the inside outside things that
Trade-offs.
you have to weigh. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's always big trade-offs. And again, older homes, there'll be a lot of minor code issues, right? So there's no handrail here for these 3 steps, or your stair tread isn't, again, to modern code right now, or maybe your attic insulation, some maybe might be bigger or smaller issues. Keep in mind, nobody is going around and making people bring their homes up to code.
Right.
That is not something that the city or the county is ever regulating. It's just something a home inspector is required to call out. That being said, of course, sometimes, again, if your insulation is incredibly low, might be worth remedying it for a winter when you own the house. That
Yeah.
could be well worthwhile. But being comfortable with taking on some of those, a little bit different kind of weird things, because it's just really not required. No seller has to
Right.
to do that. Whereas a new home, the builder does have to meet those codes and those standards, and so there can be benefits with that, but then again, also trade-offs.
Yeah. And I think that um, big things in older homes to be sure you're either willing to take on or have already been updated. I would probably, the number one for me would be electrical.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could almost deal with an old boiler over some
And electrical, the
tube.
first thing that comes to mind with that is just your insurance costs.
Yeah.
That'll be a question that an insurance provider is probably going to ask you, is what's the electrical, or when was it last dated? And that can significantly impact your insurance costs
Yeah.
for the home.
Absolutely.
So good to have an idea of what you are willing to take on and whatnot. The other thing with updating electrical, it's not just the electrician you're paying. If you have to rip into walls to get to those
Right.
wires, you're also paying for drywall,
Well,
disposal of materials, a painter, mud, tape.
but you know what's funny? Okay, and we truly have no love or hate for either. But
No
what,
skew.
right? But what's funny is like in brand new construction, where I live, the home was built in 2020. There are a total in a 3-car garage of 3 outlets. So I
Really?
still, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sorry, but so we still have to hire an electrician to go through our drywall to put in more outlets, because the way that the builder built, especially in 2020 when it was all wonky COVID stuff, you got what you got. You didn't have a lot of choices,
And you didn't get to make requests.
Right. And
no.
I think that as we move forward, as people are starting to move out of those homes that were built during that time, you start to see those little things like, why is every faucet like contractor grade? Like,
Yeah.
no fancy faucets in this house. So these are the little things that, while it's a brand new home, we're still paying to upgrade and update.
And we do the same. I mean, we've done the same thing. I added a tile backsplash this year. I've upgraded some of our faucets, and hope to do. We just have tub inserts. So again, there's always those projects that you want to do.
Right.
But what I like about a new construction home for myself is We don't have to do anything right now.
Right.
Whatever adjustments we're making, it's because we can and want to.
Right.
So that for me was a huge thing. It's the first home we've ever bought, my husband and I, and I love how easy it is because I like to spend my weekends mountain biking, hiking, skiing, being outside with friends, going to yoga. I do like to, care for my home. I don't want to feel obligated to rip out gross carpeting and get new things installed in that way. That's just not how I want to live my life right now. So again,
No.
lifestyle. What matters for you?
It's funny. My first was it my first home? Anyway, I owned a home in like St. Paul, Minnesota, and the whole thing was 980 square feet on 3 floors. Right, so it was a 2 bedroom, 1 bath. It was a cute little Cape Cod. Right, so it had like upstairs and downstairs, and the thing was completely redone. Had a gorgeous kitchen. Honestly, probably still my most favorite home because it
So
was
unique.
well, and like beautiful hardwood floors. I had 2 dogs, only two back then. I had 2 dogs, but like super easy to clean. I could wake up on a Saturday and be have that whole thing cleaned in like 45 minutes. It was great, and all the majors had been replaced. It had had a boiler at one time, and they put in a regular forced air. I added air conditioning to it, and there. So again, we don't have any in Arizona. I own 3 homes that were all under 10 years old. And I think I did more to those homes than I did to that little Cape Cod that was built in like 1930. Like,
Again, there's no wrong or right way to do it. I think to me, again, the biggest thing is just being aware of potentials and what you're buying. And some of that is just learning as you go. So, as much as we can bring up some of our experiences and what we've had clients go through, we've gone through personally, what we've had colleagues go through, we can't predict everything. You can't predict everything. So you do the best you can. But again, as you're touring homes and considering different locations and different home styles and things, I think there are certain trends that you can at least be aware of so that you then have an understanding of what may or may not come up. And again, there's always going to be surprises with home ownership. It's the toils and joys of
right,
it.
right.
But
And probably something will happen the first 2 weeks you move in.
yeah,
But that is part of the game. I think that yeah, overall, again, no, all homes are great. There are different challenges, first of all, having a proper inspection will certainly help you identify what things, not only right now initially,
yeah.
but a home inspector will also tell you, hey, this is something that requires maintenance annually, or this is something that the maintenance has been deferred on this, and so it's going to make it a little bit more costly. But if you take care of it moving forward, I think one of the biggest things that people don't necessarily pay attention to, especially when they're looking at a home in an established neighborhood, is the landscaping. Um, Builders often put landscaping, probably 3 times as much landscaping as actually needed for the property when it's new, because it's also little.
Because they don't think about the growth.
Right. And they want it to look cute. So they just overflood it with all this stuff. And then 15 years later, it's all rubbing on the roof and doing different things. I was just at a listing appointment today, and the home is 20 years old. And the woman she had some really nice big trees, and they had to be taken out when she bought the home 5 years ago because had started to rub on the shingles and stuff. And they were too close to the house. So just even trimming them back wasn't going to be good. Well, that kind of changes the aesthetic of the house.
And it is not inexpensive to have large trees removed.
No.
That is something I don't want to say argue with my husband, but we talk about it frequently because he likes to plant trees close to the house, closer than I would like. So
no.
we're discussing that.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's really funny.
It's hilarious. It's so Doug. I love them.
Well, and like different types of trees grow like weeds. Like we have here, it's like a derivation of a popple tree or an aspen tree, and they literally are a weed, and they're easy to plant and they grow great, but they will overtake. And they also have they're water seekers, so the roots can get towards your foundation and things like that.
So speaking of that, I mean, I know downtown we've sold a number of homes downtown, and something I always recommend for a downtown Bozeman home, honestly, probably Livingston as well, because they're older homes. Again, homes sometimes built in the early 1900s, maybe even 1800s, and some of them will still have clay pipes, clay sewer pipes that lead from the main house to the main line. And again, lots of old mature trees. And so sometimes those tree roots are literally growing through your sewer pipes. So you need to have them either scoped multiple times a year or potentially eventually replaced. Again,
Roto-rooted.
roto-rooted, yeah. So not, again, something that, again, very underground, you might not even think of, but because we've sold houses down there, I know that that's immediately where my mind is going. Is I wonder what the water lines are. The water lines galvanize pipes because those can corrode. And again, what are the sewer lines? So not any, honestly, everything is usually a fixable issue. It's just time and money. So I don't mean to be flippant about it, but just things to be aware of, because those old wonderful trees have really big roots that are
Right.
growing
But I
into
don't
your
know.
pipes.
Maybe I would take a house with giant old trees around it because I really want to. I probably more than like new construction.
They're beautiful.
Pretty.
And again, something I always say, I'm like, well, if the house has been here working as is since 1900s,
Probably pretty solid.
probably pretty solid, and a good chance it's going to keep doing what it's doing for the next
Hopefully.
100 years or whatever.
Yeah, I do.
So
I do think one of the other, and we touched on this a different time that we talked about it, but hidden costs of new construction in addition to landscaping, which we've been kind of talking about, but like window treatments and
yes,
just the little, like sometimes in new construction, I was talking about where I live, pull out shelves and pull out stuff in your kitchen cabinets, usually not necessarily standard. So those kinds of things might have been added to a remodeled or updated older home, but will not be in your brand new construction home. And suddenly you're looking at $10,000 for window coverings,
and that's
another
for a
five
normal
for,
home.
yeah.
That is not an exaggeration.
No.
That is a very, I would say, very standard blind package for
Right.
a standard size home.
And like you said at your townhome, uh, very common for like fiberglass 1-piece or 2-piece shower tub combos. Okay, well that certainly works. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Easy to clean, which I always like.
Easy to clean. I know it's not going to leak.
Right, but if you want to upgrade, or for a lot of people, uh, a walk-in shower is optimal. And so sometimes that's something that's not necessarily a today kind of cost, but it might be something that you do.
It's something we're consider for ourselves for sure down the road.
Yeah.
Again, it's on our list. Yeah, I think there's again so many different ways you can take this, and different angles. There's no right or wrongs. I know the one other thing that I always look at is a closet build out. So our closet was not built out, and we have just kind of a weird little system in there right now, and it's again starting to get higher and higher up on my list of things that I want to do, because having a closet that truly has drawers and space for shoes, again thinking about what do you do every single day. You get up, you get dressed, making that as seamless and as easy as possible. To me, there's a real value in that for your day-to-day enjoyment of the home.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
not necessarily a super fun thing to spend money on. I know that I will enjoy it in the end, but again, just kind of something to think about for those, even again, newer, older homes. It just really depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah. So ultimately, I think that all homes have challenges. There are trade-offs, and once you begin your journey as a buyer, you'll start to understand that. But what we want to just make sure is that no matter what age home you're looking at, that you've got all the information up front. And probably the best way to do that is to have a really thorough home inspection. In older homes where uh, you it's not worth it to save the money. Do the scope.
Yeah.
Do the scope on the plumbing, and do some other things that might seem a little bit more expensive, but will give you the information that you need to make a good decision.
It's so important. And again, even before you make an offer and spend the money on a home inspection, be prepared. Again, be willing to look around at the house and just kind of have a keen eye. And you don't know everything, obviously. That's not your job. That's not our job. But being able to be like, I imagine some of these things might come up. We can look at these things. So then at least it's not a total shock when you do pay for a home inspection and get to it. And being realistic with yourself, again, up front, to save yourself potentially a headache later.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, next, I think we're going to talk about writing an offer. So please join us in the next video as we go over crafting an offer from a buyer's perspective.
Thank you, and don't forget to subscribe and like.